welcome to today's video, which is part 3 of the Ugly Christmas Sweater Crochet Along. We worked the sweater all the way up through the torso, and now we're at the part that sits right underneath the armpit. So it's time to shape the neck. So basically what we're going to do is crochet the rest of the sweater except for the sleeves. So it's basically going to end up a shape like a tank top. So what I would actually recommend to help you with sizing this, obviously try it on as you go. Don't be afraid to undo it and try a couple times, to get it exactly right. But what it would be really helpful is if you either get a tank top or a shirt that fits really well, and you can use it as kind of a guide. If you're using a tank top, we're basically going to crochet the same kind of shape. If you have a shirt that has sleeves, just picture where the sleeves would be attached. Like if you were to cut off the sleeves like this, and you'd be going for that shape. So I would definitely grab one and have a shirt on hand so you can kind of size it as you go along. So without further ado, let's start crocheting the top of our sweater. So here's what we have left from last week, and again I'm using my size K hook at 6.5 millimeters. Now I'm going to continue finishing this top section here with my white yarn. Again, I'm using Red Heart Super Saver, but of course if you want to, you can change color now. You can change color at any point in this project. So you want to start by laying out your project where it's basically folded in half, pretty much how mine is, and you want your join from last time to be at a corner. So if we look at our tank top, we want to create a shape that goes up like this. So we're going to start by skipping a few stitches on this side. How many stitches you skip depends on your size. So if you have toothpick limbs like I do, you're not going to need to go super far in before we start making the curve. If you've got a little more muscle or tone, or even just a little more meat on your arms, you'll need to go bigger. So this is where it's really helpful to have a guide here, and so I'm just using this tank top as a guide, or you can always put it on and see about how far over you think you would want to come. Because basically, if I were to wear this part here that's like flat, that would be going under my armpit. So we basically need to skip enough so that way it's half the distance from the middle of our armpit to the front. Meaning, when I open it like this distance here is basically the width of your armpit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip 4 stitches on this side, and when I come around to this side, I'll also skip 4 stitches. So basically I will have 8 stitches where I'm not going to work taller. And I'm doing 8 just because I know that that's the distance that I need this sweater to be. So just hold it up on yourself. It helps if you have, stitch counters, and just mark right at the front. So it'd be like here on a sweater and here. So just kind of mark how far you need that front and back to be on your sweater, that piece that you have here, and then skip that many stitches. So I'm going to skip these first few by just working some slip stitches. So this one I'm not going to work here. I'm not going to work here. I'm going to work a slip stitch. Skip this 3rd stitch by just doing a slip stitch in it. Get this 4th stitch, and I will come to my 5th stitch. I am going to start working tall double crochet going across, and we're going to start working back and forth in rows. So I'm going to start by chaining 2, and then in the same stitch here I'm going to work a double crochet, and then I'm going to work double crochet evenly across, but I'm going to leave 4 stitches on this side. So you may not be doing 4 stitches. You may need to skip more stitches, you may need to skip less. But however many you skip on this side, you're going to skip the same number on that side. So here I skipped 4 on the top, so on this side I'll also skip 4. What's helpful is if you get out a stitch counter or use a bobby pin and just mark what stitch you need to stop at. So I know that's going to be this one. I'm just going to keep track, but if you think you might get mixed up and just start working around, it definitely helps to put a counter there. So I'm just going to work double crochet evenly across the top of this project, and then I will start on the next row. Alright, so here's the dealio. I skipped these 4 stitches here, so I'm going to stop when I have 4 stitches left. And this is going to be our first row going up. And we're going to keep working up like this until we hit our neckline. So to work my next row, I'm going to flip the whole thing over. I'm going to chain 2, and And I'm gonna work a double crochet in the same spot here where I worked my chain 2. Now this time I'm not going to work evenly across. I'm going to do a decrease in my second 2 spots, because if we look at our model here, you know, it goes in, but then it starts going up, but then it still kind of has this curve. So we're going to do a few rows where we do these decreases, so that way it'll keep curving inward, and this will also make the sleeves attach better. So to do this, I started with my chain, and then I worked a double crochet in that very first spot right next to my chain 2. And then on my next 2 stitches, I'm going to work a double crochet decrease. If you're not sure how to do that, you're going to start by yarning over, insert your hook in the first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now instead of finishing the double crochet, we're going to come to our next stitch, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over, pull through 2. And what that does is it basically combines those 2 and turns them into 1 stitch. So this row is going to have 1 less stitch, and that's going to start curving it inward. Once I do the decrease on this side, I'm going to work evenly across until I have just 3 stitches left. So again, I'm just working double crochet because it works up quickly. Alright, so here I am. I've worked across to just about the end of my row. Now I'm not counting these turning chains as a stitch, so I'm saying that I have 1, 2, 3 stitches left. You can see them there, and I'm not counting this turning chain. So I've just got 3 left, and in this third and second one from the end, I'm going to work my double crochet decrease. So yarn over, insert hook in the first spot, yarn over, pull up a loop, insert your hook in the next spot, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So that's my decrease, and then in that last spot I'm just going to work a double crochet like normal. So I'm going to repeat the process of this previous row a few more times. So you work your first stitch, and then you do a decrease, and then you just work evenly across, and that's going to keep creating that curve inward. Now you might be thinking, okay Amanda, that's cool and all, but how do I know how many times to do it? Well, you want to keep coming in enough so that way you have plenty of room for your arm. So we kind of started like here, but we still want to come over a little bit more. So make sure you come over a little bit more. I would keep coming inward until you reach the neck. Once we reach the neck, we'll make these sides go straight and we'll start curving this out. Okay? So I'm going to repeat this process a few more times. If you want just a little bit of reference, on my sweater, I did that row, I repeated it 4 times on my sweater, so that's just a reference if you're similar in size as me. But again, just play around with it, and the key is to make it feel comfortable. What we're finishing up today is going to fit kind of like a tank top, so if you find you need a little more arm room, then just keep coming in, and if you think you've come in too far, then just unravel it and make it a little bit wider, or you could just leave it and we'll make the sleeves fill it in. So I'm going to repeat this row a few more times, and then I'll show you how we're going to start shaping the neck. Here you can see I've got my reference shirt laid out, so I'm going to show you what I just finished crocheting this section. And if we look at it, we're going to kind of line up the bottom here with the armpits, like that. And I've worked up this front section. Now, as you can see, I did go above the neck hole, and that's just because this is a summer tank, so, you know, the top's a little lower, but in the winter you want nice cozy, all the way up to your neck warmth. So that's as far up as I'm going to come. So what I need to do next is I need to crochet this thinner band, and I need to get this part to come out. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do any more decreases on this side or this side. I'm going to go ahead and make it thinner here. So I'm going to come to my end of my row. Now do keep in mind whether you're on the front or the back, it doesn't really matter. The process itself is very similar, but just make sure you're keeping track for your sake. So I did like an even number of rows, but if you did an odd number, you would be on this side, so our flips would be different. So I'm going to work for me, but obviously flip when it makes sense when you're at the end of a row. So I want to come narrower to start making the piece that goes over the shoulder. So I'm going to start by chaining 2. And I'm going to work double crochet in that same first spot, and then I'm going to work a few more, and I'm going to work it until it's about the same width as my model shirt here. So I want to be about, you know, the width here because we are going to make this come over. In general, you're probably going to work somewhere between 4 and 8 stitches across. It just depends on how wide you want your sleeves to be. My sweater, it sits a little more open the neck, so if you don't want the neck to be as open, work in more. Or if you want it to be thinner, then work fewer stitches. So to get kind of that curve here, I'm going to work a bit over, and then on my last 2 stitches for this section, I'm going to work a double crochet decrease. And then we're going to flip our work and work another row here, which you may notice that, wait a minute, what about this side? Yes, we are going to need to detach the yarn, but I'm going to show you some really cool tricks for when we rejoin, and also we will be able to work over our tails as much as possible so we have less ends to weave in later. But coming back to this side, I'm going to flip my work. And probably once I do maybe 1 or 2 decreases, I'll just start working up evenly. I'm just going to do 1 decrease on this particular sweater just because it just depends on how you want to shape your neck. So if you want more of a shallow and wide neck, you're going to do several rows of the decrease. So you're going to start wider over here and do a bunch of decreases. Or if you want a straighter edge to your neck, then you won't go as wide, you'll stay narrower and do just a few rows of the decrease. On this particular sweater, I'm just doing the 1 decrease here. And now I'm going to just work back and forth evenly. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. Now what I would recommend is whatever you do on this side, because we're going to repeat it over here, it is a good idea to write down what you do. So let's say you do just 1 row of the decrease, make a note of that so that way you don't forget when you start the next side. So I'm going to work back and forth doing 5 stitches across, and I'll show you on our model shirt how we can tell when we need to stop just working this really long, because if we work it too long, then the sweater will hang really weird. So if we look at our model shirt, we're basically working on this side right here, okay? So I'm gonna work until I get to the back, and then, so I'll work kind of a section about like that. And then once I see the back, see how the back here, it starts after a bit, once I come over the shoulders, it just starts coming kind of flat again. I'm gonna work so it comes over the shoulders, and then I'll show you how to go wide again. That's to give you an idea of how many times to go back and forth and how long to make this section. You want it to go long enough to go over your shoulder and over the back a little ways. So I'm going to finish up working this side as long as I want it, and then I'll show you how to work the other side. So I've worked this longer, and I'm going to show you how I measured on here to make sure that this was the right length. So also you can hold this up, hold this edge under your armpit, reach this back over your shoulder, and see how far back down it comes. And if it comes down far enough where you would be able to work flat across, that's one way to tell. Another way is to use our reference here. So if I lay this on top of our reference, I'm going to line up the armpits, and here we can see that I'm going to come over the top. Now, something you may want to do is you may want to give it just a little stretch as you measure this, because when it's hanging on you, the weight of it is going to stretch it a little bit. So I'm going to give it just a little stretch, not like crazy like this, but just a little bit of stretch. And fold it over back. So when I fold it over back, we can see that it comes down to about where it starts going flat across. So that's how I know that I have gone far enough with this piece. So once you get your first side done, you're going to detach your yarn. So what I want to do next is I want to basically work a mirror image. When I say mirror image, you're going to work the same basic idea, just you want to make sure that your decreases are on the inside. I only did 1 row with a decrease, and it was this very first one here. But you want to make sure that you don't do this exact copy, because if you do an exact copy, you'd work decrease on this side. So you want to mirror image it. So this one was decrease, stitch, stitch, stitch. So on this side, we want to do stitch, 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 decrease, okay? So now it's time to attach over here. How do I know which side to attach? Well, the way I tell is what I want to happen is once I work my last row on this side at the very top here, I want to be working in that direction. And that's because I'm either going to then chain across or work my Foundationalist double crochet row across. And when I do that, if I end up with the yarn over here, I'm gonna have to either do extra slip stitches or detach my yarn, and I'd rather save that hassle. So if you don't quite catch this next part and you do find that you end up on the right side versus the left side when you get to the top, that's okay. You can always detach your yarn or slip stitch across, but if you can follow along with this next part, it will save you a little bit of attaching and retaching yarn. So what I want to do is I want to count how many rows I did all together above this flat row. So here I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if we think about it, when we work crochet, every other row goes a different direction. So if I start going to the left, I'll have row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And row 8 will be working to my right. So I don't want to start going left. I want to start going right because then it'll be row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7, row 8. Okay, really easy way to tell which side you need to be on. If you have an odd number of rows here, start on the right side. If you have an even number like I do, we're going to start in a few stitches, okay? So because I have an even row and I'm starting in a few stitches, I'm going to flip my work over. If you were starting on the edge, you wouldn't need to worry about flipping your work over, and you would just join at the edge. But because I have an even number of rows, I'm going to join on the inside. So I'm going to start by making a slip knot. And you can either attach with a slip stitch and then work 2 chain up and start working across. I'm just going to basically, what I like to call a drop double crochet. I have no idea if that's actually what you call it or not. But I know that on this side, now remember, I want to mirror this side. So here I had 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a decrease. So my decrease is going to be on this side. So, and then I'll have 4 stitches. So I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. Those will be the 4 where I'll do just normal stitches. So these 2 right here are going to be where I work my decrease. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook in this first one here, pull up a loop, insert my hook in the next one, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over, pull through 2. And I'm just attaching and doing that decrease all at once. So now I'm going to, again, finish mirroring this row and work those 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches across to the end of this edge here. So 1 double crochet, 2 double crochet, and 3 double crochet. Last of all, a 4th double crochet. So now that you're attached, you're just going to keep mirroring what you did on this side. I didn't do any more decreases or increases, so all I have left to do is work 7 rows of 5 stitches evenly, working up. If you did do more decreases here, then you would just keep mirroring it as you work your way up. So I'm going to finish mirroring this, and then I'll show you what comes next. One last quick word, I would recommend you work over your tails as much as possible. So on this row, I'm going to grab this tail and just hold it across my stitches while I work, so that way I don't have to weave it in later on. Okie dokie, now it's time to work across and get this all going, joined it back together again. Now, here it's going to be time for a little bit of math, not too much, but we first need to figure out how many stitches we will need to fill in this section here. The way we find this is we're going to come down here and we're going to count all the unworked stitches. So this one I have that decrease in, so I'm not going to cut this, but I'm going to start here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and that one there you can see there's the decrease in it, so I'm not going to count this one. So I have 13 stitches. Now you may think, okay, I worked 13 across. Not actually, because remember we did a decrease here, so we need to, for every decrease, add 1 stitch to our count. So we counted 13, but then I did a decrease here, so I'm going to add 1, so that's 14. I did a decrease here, so add another 1, now we're at 15. If I had done a decrease on this row, I would also count the decrease here and add 1. If I'd done a decrease here, I would add 1 for that. So every decrease you go up, even if they're on the same side, even if there's multiple rows with decreases, for every decrease that you work on this inside here, you need to add 1 stitch to your count. So here I have 13. On this inside here, I have a total of 2 decreases. So I add 1 for this one, 1 for this one, and I get 15. So I need to work 15 stitches across. So there's 2 ways to do this. I really prefer one method over the other, but I know some people have a harder time getting the hang of it, so you can totally go with whichever option you want. You can either join these back across by working slip stitches, or you can work back across with a foundationless double crochet. I really like the foundationless double crochet, but I'll show you how to do it with the slip stitches first, and then I'll show you how to do it with the Foundationalist double crochet. Okay, I've been saying slip stitch, I mean chain. I'm gonna show you the chain method first. So, however many stitches I counted when I counted the unmarked ones and then added to my count because of the decreases, I'm going to work one chain. So, I counted 15, I'm going to work 15 chains. So, 1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
and 15. Once I work 15, I'm going to come to this side, slip stitch in the top. The right side, just work a slip stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch all the way across to get to that corner there. And then from here, I'd be in a position where I'd be ready to work up and start working my next row across. So that's one option. I don't like the chain as much though, just because it doesn't have as much stretch. Whereas see this side how it has a lot of stretch, the chain, you know, it's just a little tighter. So I'm not a fan of having the chain there, but that's totally an option. Now at this point, once you work across, you need to verify that this is big enough for your head to fit through. Because if you reach a point where it doesn't actually fit, you don't want to do any extra work because that's more unraveling. If you find that this is too small for your head, you can work some extra stitches in here. This is going to be a good enough size, so I've already checked that, so I don't need to worry about that, but make sure you check it at this point because you don't want to work further on and then go put it on and realize, wow, I've got a whole bunch to undo. This is the chain method. Let me show you the Foundationalist double crochet method. So I'm back where I started. And the idea here is I'm going to work 15 Foundationalist double crochet working across instead of working chains. So if I come in here, I'm going to start with joining at this corner. So to work a Foundationalist double crochet, you're going to start by yarning over. Then you're going to insert your hook in the base of the stitch right before it. So I'm just going to come with this one kind of along that bottom, under the side a little bit, just where I can get a good grip, okay? Then I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. Then yarn over and pull a loop through one. And now we complete our double crochet. So yarn over, pull through two, yarn over, pull through two. So that's our first extra double crochet. Let's work our second one. Again, so yarn over, gonna insert in the base of the preceding stitch. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull up a loop again, and now finish our stitch by yarn over, pull through two, yarn over, pull through two. I have a whole video teaching this, so if you want to give that a watch, I'll put the card up there. But otherwise, we're just going to keep repeating this process across, just working 15 Foundationalist double crochet. That's how I'm going to leave my sweater. So I'm going to finish working this across, and then I will show you the next few rows. And then we're almost to the end of this stage of our project. So now I've worked my 15 Foundationalist double crochet across, and it's time to join it. Now there are two ways that this can be worked. The way I'm showing you, because we worked the same number of rows on this side as we did on this side, this is our 8th row, so we want it to line up with this. We want it to sit right there, okay? So we're just going to insert our hook on the top of our row, and we're going to slip stitch it together. And then we'll slip stitch across. Now you may notice that, look, normally when we work double crochet, they're all worked beside each other, and so the bases stay together. Right here, you can see that they can pull apart. We're going to be adding a row going around the neck, so when we do that, we'll basically join it together at that point. So we'll work a stitch going through this and this to hold it together, so I don't need to worry about it. Another option though would be to work an extra row on this side. If you had done an extra row and this were the 9th row instead of the 8th row, well then this row would correspond to, so then this would be the 8th row, which would correspond to the 8th row on this side. In this 9th row, we would just start working right along the top there. And that's a really nice way to join it also. It doesn't really matter which way you go about it, just whichever seems easier to you. Again, this is an ugly Christmas sweater, so it's totally okay if it doesn't turn out perfect. But just in case you're wondering about that, we'll come back in just a bit here and we'll fix that. So same as with the chain join, I'm going to slip stitch across till I get to this corner, and then it will be time to work back down. So once I've slip stitched to the corner, I'm going to chain 2 and flip my work over. So if we think about it, this is how it's going to kind of sit. It can sit with either the back higher, or the back can be even. Now if you want the back to be higher, if you want the back to be even, you're going to work an exact mirror image, just in the reverse order of rows going down. So this row here would correspond with this row from the up front side. So then the next row we would do exactly what we did along here. Next row do exactly what we did along here, and keep working down until it's time to join to this row, and I'll teach you how to do that. If you want the back to sit up a little higher, you know, if we look at this one, the front's lower than the back, so you can see the back, it sits up higher. If we want that, we're just going to pick how far up we want it to sit, and then we'll start mirroring the rows beyond that. So basically it changes the number of rows that you do. So either this row can correspond with this row, or it can correspond with one of these ones up here. Either way, I'm just going to start working back across, and I'm going to pay attention to when I did those decreases, and wherever I did decreases on the front, I will do increases on the back. So I'm going to have mine sit up a little bit higher. So my next row is going to correspond with this row. To crochet this row, I did a stitch and then a decrease, and then all the way even across, decrease stitch. So when I mirror this, I'm going to start by doing a stitch. So I've already worked my chain 2 there. I'm going to work a stitch in that first spot. And then next, on this side, I had a decrease here. So to mirror the decrease, I'm going to work an increase, meaning I will work 2 stitches in the next spot. So work 1 and 2 as my increase. Then I will work all the way over until I have just 2 stitches left, just evenly with double crochet. So here I am, I'm getting near to the end. So remember, in the row that we're mirroring, the last 2 stitches of the row were a decrease and then just a normal stitch. So I'm going to mirror that by my second to last stitch working an increase. So I'm going to work 2 double crochet in that same spot, and then in my last stitch work just 1 double crochet. And that's how I'm going to mirror. So if we lay this back down, you know, this row that we did sits above the front, so it's a little higher, and this row we just crocheted is going to correspond with that row. So my next row is going to correspond with that. Again, wherever I have a decrease, I'm going to do an increase, and I would just keep working that until I have worked this row, a mirror of this row, mirror of this row, mirror of this row, however many rows you have to mirror until you reach this top even section, and then I'll show you how to join. Alright, so I have finished working on my top, and now it's just a matter of attaching this edge down here, and that will shape the top of our sweater. So there's a couple things I need to do. First of all, I need to make sure that I skip the same number of stitches on this back side as I did on the front side. Again, this is where stitch counters come in really handy. So I have these Clover stitch counters. I'll put a link for them in the description below, and I really like them. They work pretty well. So I'm going to look on this side, and remember, I decided to skip 4 on each side. So I'm going to find those 4, and then I'm going to count 4 more to the back. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to put this in the stitch that's the farthest one I want to skip, so I don't work where I put my marker. You can obviously mark it either way, just make sure you know what the marker means. So 1, 2, 3, 4 for the front, and 1, 2, 3, 4 for the back. I'll mark this one also. So if we counted correctly, we will have the same number of stitches between the 2 blue markers as we do along this back section here. So now it's time to join it. For joining it, I'm just going to do a simple slip stitch along it. Because I'm going to do a slip stitch though, I am going to inside out the sweater. It might take a moment to get it all entangled and figure out which way is which, but I want to slip stitch this stitch that I'm in now with the corresponding stitch along the back. So again, I'm not working here, but so I'm going to insert my hook on this one to the left of my marker, insert it through there, and also through the top of that stitch there. Gotta find which way my yarn is going. Okay, it's going to the right over here. I want it situated on this back side here. I'm going to yarn over. So once I got this all situated, I'm going to yarn over, making sure, so I just pulled my yarn around to the back. I'm going to yarn over and pull through everything on my hook. Okay? Basically, it's going to be, you're going to kind of fold it like this, if you will, where we kind of have it going downward like that. So I kind of have it folded like this, and I'm just going to crochet along the corresponding stitches. So I'm going to insert through the next stitch on this side, through the next stitch on that side, yarn over and pull through everything to work that slip stitch. Insert through the next stitch on this side, enter through the next stitch on that side, pull through everything, and I'm just going to keep working the slip stitch all the way down to the other end, working, just lining up my stitches, and it's going to create a really nice secure hold, and once we inside out it, you won't be able to see it super badly. Now if you get to the end and you find that you have too many stitches or too few stitches on either side, that means that we just counted wrong somewhere. So you have a couple options. You can obviously, frog your work, unravel it, and go back and fix the mistake. Or you can just kind of fudge it and either have one armhole slightly bigger, or you can just shift it over so that way it's centered in the back and just make the armholes a little bigger on the back side. You could always, slip stitch 2 stitches to the same spot to even it out. Just play around and make it work. Alright, so I just finished working across. I was actually a little bit off, so I must have miscounted somewhere or not done enough rows of increases when I worked back across, but that's okay. Still made it work. And I just finished slip stitching across, so I'm going to fasten off right here. And then we'll turn it back the correct side out and see what we've got. I can take my stitch counters out also. Inside out it. And there's the seam. It looks a little weird right now, just a bit sticking out, but it'll lay flat once it's actually being worn. So obviously at this point I would recommend that you try it on. I will show you one more thing before we go today, and we're just going to crochet around the inside of the collar in an accent color. So I'm going to use red for this. You can really start wherever. I'm just going to start right here at this corner. No reason in particular why this corner, just that's where I felt like starting. So I'm going to create a slip knot in my accent color, put it on my hook. I'm going to start working right along here. So I'm going to insert my hook, work over this tail end. And I'm just going to do single crochet as my border. You could do double crochet if you wanted. You could do half double crochet. I'm just going to go simple with the single crochet. Once you get to working along the sleeve, it's harder to tell where to go in, but it doesn't really matter where you go in, just as long as you work the single crochet evenly. Again, I'm not even going to bother counting that this side matches the inner side of this other sleeve because, hey, it's an ugly Christmas sweater. So I'm just going to single crochet evenly across, and of course, once we get to that spot where we need to join it, I'll show you what I do there. So if we look here, this is that stitch that I want to get it to join here. So just pay attention that you don't accidentally work right across there. So just keep that in mind. I'm even going to get one of my stitch counters and kind of connect it so I can really clearly see that, oh, this is what I need to really join together well. So I'm going to work down near it. One more in this spot. And then when I work my join, I'm just going to insert my hook through this and through the other piece, so just kind of hold them together and work a single crochet and single stitch through it. Take my stitch counter out, and that's just going to fill in that little spot there. If it's gaping weird, you can drop your single crochet kind of back over this way before going through there and just kind of pull it together. You can always, adjust what you go through, maybe come through 2 loops on this side, so that way it can't stretch as much, and come through 2 loops over here. We'll just come through like this. And we'll pull that through, work that single crochet. Just play around with it to get the spacing that you want. And then just work single crochet evenly along this back, across the side, and along the front. And once we get back to where we started this single crochet border, we'll just join with a slip stitch and fasten off. So I'm going to finish crocheting around, and then I'll show you what we've got on our model. Oh, you are are so stylish. So check it out. You want to spin around so people can see? Raise your arms so you can see. So we fit this pretty good. Hopefully you were able to follow along and get yours to fit this well also. If not, it's okay. Just play around with it, tweak it. You may need to, come farther forward. So that way, this spot of the arm is long enough. Or maybe you found that you need to come higher, come wider with your straps. But overall, I think we did a pretty good job today on this. You like it? Yeah. So also another idea, if you live in like Florida or like the southern hemisphere of the globe or something, you could always make an ugly Christmas tank top, that could make that a thing. So thanks so much for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed this. Don't forget that if you are crocheting along, that you go to Crafters Autonomous on Facebook and you drop a picture of your sweater in the comments. I have a pinned post, so you'll see it right there when you get to the page. I'll put the links for all the stuff below too. But make sure you share your progress so we can all encourage each other and see how everyone's sweaters are turning out. Also, make sure that you give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and don't forget to subscribe if you're not already one of my crafters. I'd love for you to join my family of crafters and see all the different projects that I'm working on. So, it is the week of Thanksgiving. One thing I'm thankful for is you, and I'm thankful that you're about to hit that subscribe button down below. Just kidding. But seriously though, you should hit that subscribe button. I hope you all have an awesome Thanksgiving, and as always, happy crafting. Hey you, make sure you check out some of these other videos that are all around me. There's so many fun things out here. You should also hit that subscribe button. You should check out the videos from last week and the week before so you don't miss the earlier parts of this project. Also over there, hey, look at that cute Santa hat. Go check it out. Go see what else is on my channel.